Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Disillusion record, Ayam. Ayam is the latest studio album from the German progressive metal band Disillusion, and they are a band that have been pretty interesting to follow over time, as although they never really met the waves of success that many of their death metal peers did throughout the 2000s, it seems within recent years that they've gotten at least a little bit more love than they did back when they first started out. Despite being around since the very late 90s, Disillusion have never gotten quite the amount of credit that they've actually deserved, excluding perhaps 2004's Back to Times of Splendor, but even then, that's an album that has cult status at best and still doesn't get discussed by the alternative metal community as a whole very often. And now here we are, and Disillusion makes what may be their boldest and easily their most impressive statement to date with their latest studio album, Ayam. Ayam is the kind of album that feels epic and it knows it, but it is successfully epic at the same time, and an album knowing that it's epic and trying to be epic is something that can be a very bad thing, because if you're trying to make a record on a very grand scale and that's the only goal in the end, your only hopeful achievement is just making something that feels very massive, then chances are it's just going to feel self-indulgent, it's going to feel bloated, it's going to feel unnecessarily over the top. But Ayam never actually feels that way. It feels like an album that has a lot of love and passion poured into it that just so happens to feel like the metal equivalent of some sort of fantasy series of novels. This massive masterpiece of a work that's just being translated into the form of progressive metal. It is an impressive record just for the success that it has in really conveying a sense of massive proportion while also at the same time remaining grounded. A lot of that success in groundedness can really be accredited to the members of Disillusion knowing when and where to go with different things in different directions for their sound and for Ayam as a record and listening experience, and that just ultimately means that when this album needs to smash you in the face with a sledgehammer, hey, it does that, and it does that beautifully. And when it needs to just kind of croon over a minimalistic backdrop for a passage or two to sort of let up from things and build up the ambience of a track or even the album as a whole, it does that, and it does that just as well. Frontman Andy Schmidt is a great part of Disillusion and arguably the standout member, not only in the band in general, but specifically on this album, and that's largely just because of the fact that he really defies the laws of death metal and what could have easily been done here to result in a more predictable and generally less impressive listening experience. Ayam is the kind of record that could easily be paired with classic death metal screams, growls, barks, and all of the likes that go together with traditionalist death metal vocal styles, even in the more subtle and ambient-related passages, and pretty much skate by without anyone giving it a second glance in terms of doing anything wrong per se, but at the same time, the record wouldn't feel nearly as impressive, and that's because Andy Schmidt's vocal work is shockingly clean and explosively emotive to the point that it almost feels like he himself is the lead instrument of Disillusion throughout the entirety of Ayam. And for all of those extremist metal fans out there, don't worry, he can still just be as vicious as the best of them when he wants to. It's just that he refuses to overdo it here, and that level of self-control greatly benefits his own performance, greatly benefits the performances of his peers, and greatly benefits the album as a whole, as he really does have those vocal nuances that, again, pair beautifully with these acoustic passages and with any given laid-back moment. Speaking of those laid-back moments, the more ambient passages, the acoustic passages that are presented throughout the entirety of Ayam are beautifully presented and brilliantly done, and that's saying something because although I am a fan of progressive metal, and of course progressive metal is something that does have a lot of acoustic passages in it as comes with the genre, but therein lies the problem with the subgenre as a whole. A lot of progressive metal with acoustic or ambient passages is sort of like plain cheesecake in a way, and by that I mean that it's not bad, and it's something that's even very good pretty consistently for the most part, but at the same time, it feels like it's so common at this point that every time you consume even the better side of it, you just kind of have a taste for something else, or at the very least, a remix of the formula of a very old recipe. Ayam is the kind of album that really does appeal to people that want a sort of redo of a lot of sounds in progressive metal that have been going on for decades now, and I mean, I'm one of those people, so this album greatly appeals to me from that particular perspective. The record is just structured beautifully, there's not a single note of wasted time here, and overall, the moments where the band do let up feel 100% necessary all of the time, constantly, and again, there just isn't a single second that feels like it's out of place. So overall, Ayam is the kind of record that sees forgotten would-be legends like Disillusion really come back with a massive statement not only musically, but in terms of consistency and quality as well. This is easily their boldest album to date, and not only that, but one of the boldest albums of the year so far, metal or not. I'm going to give this record 4.5 stars out of 5. With that being said, that's the end of this album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.